Hey everyone, welcome to That's Peculiar. I'm Nathan,
I am Andra.
and Andra has an episode today. I do have to say though, we did run into a snag last week, so we didn't put out an episode. We're sorry. We're trying to fix it.
Yeah, actually, we did this episode already.
Well, okay, who's we?
Jack and I did this episode.
Yeah, and I appreciate the attempt. I really do, because it was going to be very helpful. And then I pulled it up to edit it, and all I heard was...
He wants to do it again. So, he wants to be on the show again. So we'll do it again.
Yeah, we can do it again. We'll have to figure out the way to actually do it. So, I don't know.
I think just sticking with what I do now is best.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll play with it. Anyway.
I am going on a girls' trip tomorrow.
When? Oh, for how long? The weekend?
Yeah. It's with Janessa and Ashley, so it should be a lot of fun.
Where are you going?
Right outside of Reno into Sparks, but we'll go to Reno too. We're going to go to a magic show on Friday, and then we're going to go to a drag brunch on Sunday.
They have drag brunch in Reno or in Sparks?
Yes. Both.
I didn't know that. I felt like it was just... that wasn't a thing there.
It's a thing. There's a lot of options, and we're going, so
that's going to be fun. You guys renting an Airbnb?
No. Coincidentally, Jack's Nana has an Airbnb, has a house there. So we're going to go stay there, but it's my friend, shout out to Caitlin, it's her 30th birthday. So I was originally going for that, and then we decided to turn it into a whole group trip.
Well, that'll be fun. And it's not a girls' trip then, it's a birthday trip.
It's a birthday girls' trip.
Yeah, still. Well, at least you have somewhere to stay. That's really nice. Save some money.
I know. It was just random. Where they set up the 30th birthday party is in Sparks. And it just so happens Jack's Nana has a house in Sparks. So we were like...
Cool.
Cool. And she doesn't normally stay there. She lives somewhere else, so...
Old people problems.
Hope she doesn't listen to this because she'll murder you. Okay, so I do have a check-in, or that was my check-in. I do have a fun fact.
Oh, okay.
Giraffes are 30 times more likely to get hit by lightning than people.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it made sense to Jack too.
Yeah.
There are only 5 well-documented fatal lightning strikes on giraffes between 1996 and 2010.
Well, are they watching all of the giraffes to know this?
Oh, the lightning struck giraffes, yeah.
Interesting.
But it's still 30 times the equivalent fatality rate to humans.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Did you know also that giraffes have the same amount of neck bones as humans?
Oh my god. I mean, that kinda checks out. Enough with my long neck. Okay.
I'll just start calling you giraffe.
I actually had a little boy call me a giraffe, and nothing hurt harder. I couldn't even be mad because he was just being brutally honest. And I was like,
damn.
That just...
Ouch, little dude. Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, diving in today's episode, we are going to be talking about hatters.
Like
people that make hats and turn mad.
Didn't they turn mad because the glue they used?
Sort of.
Huh. They're probably alcoholics too. I don't know.
They are. Did you Google this?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, that is hilarious.
I'm just going with my gut.
In the 19th century, hat factories, obviously, I just want to say before we go into this, it did come up before this. This is just when it became a really known issue, but people obviously made some hats before this.
Oh, they did? Hats didn't exist before then?
No, they did. But in the 19th century, hat factories of Danbury made physical wrecks of thousands of workers. They turned them into Mad Hatters with symptoms known as the Danbury shakes. So, what that really is, the symptoms of a Mad Hatter is tremors. They call them Hatter shakes,
Okay.
slurred speech,
Oh.
irritability, shyness, depression, and in some cases, hallucinations and psychosis.
It's so interesting that a whole industry ended up getting something named like I've got Mad Hatters.
Oh, the Hatter shakes, it's fine.
That it's fine. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm just paranoid.
Hat makers used mercuric nitrate to make hats. Many developed mercury poisoning, manifesting as drooling, pathological shyness, irritability, and tremor. But the problem is mercury poisoning looked a lot like drunkenness.
What did they use mercury nitrate for? Mercury.
We'll get
What
into
is?
that in just a
Okay.
second. Yeah.
I'm like, what is it? Why are they using it?
Yeah, they had to. It's actually after that, an arsenic came out. And then now today it would be, oh my God. Well, for some things it's actually penicillin, but basically today it would be like a form of glue, but it's a specific form of glue.
Oh.
But we'll go into it. Um, so mercury poisoning looked a lot like drunkenness, as you stated. The problem is a lot of people that were hatters actually did get drunk to make it through their day.
Wait. Oh yeah, drinking on the job was definitely an okay thing back then.
Yeah, but also a lot of them just like were drunk because they were dealing with shakes, irritability, tremor, all of that. So just keep that in mind as we go through.
Okay.
Danbury's hat making history goes back to the late 18th century. This is just Danbury. According to local legend, a man named Zadok Benedict plugged a hole in his shoe with fur. He found with sweat and friction it turned into felt.
Melting.
Benedict began making felted fur hats on his bedpost and eventually opened up a hat shop on Main Street. Others followed, setting up a small hat shop in Danbury. By 1800s, Danbury made more hats than any other U.S. city.
Huh. Interesting.
By the 1880s, industrialization and consumer demand fueled the growth of Danbury's hat factories, which produced 5 million hats a year.
Oh my god. In the 1800s?
People called Danbury Hat City. That actually checks out to me because everybody wore hats in the 1800s.
I guess I mean,
Like
definitely
everyone.
their top hats and their this hat
Can
and
you imagine a world where everyone has hats? Like
the
that's
ladies
how,
had their hats and their hat pins.
yeah, that's like how it was. So people called Danbury Hat City and formed baseball teams called the Danbury Hatters. Lighted sign proclaimed Danbury crowns them all. And the city put a derby hat on its seal. So
Wow.
any like seal from the
Hats were
place.
a big deal.
Yeah, all to say that, yeah. Working in the factories was awful. There was a lot of other working conditions like breaks that weren't happening, a lot of heat without
Mm-hmm.
an open window source,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of sitting or like bad posture stuff. There was a lot of things that were happening in factories that were just like overall terrible. By the outbreak of the Civil War, doctors knew there were symptoms of mercury poisoning, but
Okay.
no one did anything about it because for almost a century, because to make hats, workers matted together rabbit or beaver skins and smoothed them with an orange solution. It's an orangey red kind of color. Um, that's the color of mercuric nitrate, so it turns like a red color.
Okay.
Hatters then shaped the resulting felt into large cones and shrank them by boiling them in water and then dried them. So this is how they created hats. They would
Okay.
basically boil them and dry them and cook them on. So in 1851, the workers formed the Hatters Union because conditions were interesting. That year, they reported on working conditions in an effort to improve them. According to the report, unknown to the workers, it was a rain of death from the fumes of nitrate of mercury.
Because they didn't really know how dangerous it really was.
The workers didn't, but the doctors and everyone else did. So what was happening is basically there was an outbreak of syphilis because of the war. Yes, and because of syphilis, they actually used to treat syphilis with mercury.
With poison?
No, so that's the thing. They said like the very specific dose of it was perfect. But if you got a little too much or a little too less, it did nothing or it like killed you.
Great. That's a fine
Yeah.
line.
So you had to like literally get the right dose of it, and then it was like a cure-all. Think about it though, this is before they really were testing out penicillin. It was before, other options. Even
Yeah.
arsenic. Arsenic became the next thing that they used.
Ugh.
Yeah, so it went from, which is like less fatal than mercury. So for anyone who wanted to know, in cases of mercury, arsenic, penicillin, it goes in that order, okay? Of like death rates.
Good to know.
And
Also,
even still to this day, a lot of people are allergic to penicillin and it kills a lot of people. So
people are allergic to penicillin?
I am.
You're allergic to penicillin?
I'm allergic to all of the basically antibiotics and sulfas.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. That's awful. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's actually really hilarious when I go into the doctor's office and they're like,
what are you allergic to any medications?
Yeah, they're all, what allergies do you have? Is it still? And I'm like, yes.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't even know how to spell all the stuff I'm allergic to. I think that's a problem.
And you can barely say it.
Yes. Yeah. But anyways.
But no, it's funny too, because like you're talking about their working conditions, like there's no breaks, it's hot, it's this, it's that, and they formed a union. And that's where like so many of our current like labor rights that we have come from is because of unions that like work together to make that happen.
Formed in the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. And so then it became standardized over time.
But people don't realize it took, like, the Hatters never got what they deserved ever.
Oh,
like,
of course
sorry,
not.
Spoiler alert. They never got even half of what they should have.
Well, I mean, of course, the companies don't ever want to do that. But then part of it too is they should have, because they were working in such hazardous conditions.
Yeah, and then after they all died, people were like, maybe they weren't just drunk.
Maybe they weren't just crazy. Maybe something made them crazy.
Yeah. So we'll get into it. There's actually a specific person in this case that changed things. But as far as mercury poisoning, a lot of doctors had actually already been doing all the work for other places that use mercury, like or any poisoning like that. But like one of them is actually the radiation girls. Used to do time clocks and stuff where they would like glow, and that was like radiation was killing these women. We can go into that on a different day. That would be, yeah, you know how you want your alarm clock to glow?
Yeah.
Yeah, that paint that was in there used to actually have radiation in it.
Oh.
And it was poisoning the women to the point where their jaws were like, their jawbones would fall off their faces. Yes. Were you not prepared for that?
No.
I'm just telling you this because, like, the person who fights for the Hatters is not the same. Like, there's a lot of people that fought for mercury poisoning before this and after it. I
Yeah.
just want people to know that I'm only giving the details of like who fought for like the Hatters. You can
Yeah.
Google the first people fighting for mercury poisoning, and it's actually before, and it's a different person, but it's not for this union.
Oh, so people were fighting the whole mercury thing before this Danbury one specifically.
Well, before. It's crazy. So people knew about mercury poisoning for doctors, for surgeons, for like all other working conditions had already banned mercury poisoning, but for
Except
some
the
reason
Hatters didn't have to worry
they
about
let
that.
it continue for so long for the Hatters. And that's what's ridiculous about this case because they had already known that mercury was poisoning people.
That's
But they just like
crazy.
didn't think about this group of people that were making hats. I don't know. Anyways, back to it. No one did anything for almost a century, partially because they were blaming it on syphilis, and partially because they were fighting for other working conditions, not hatters. So to make
So
hats, work
when you say other working, you're talking about like other industry
positions.
work?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Different industries.
Okay.
So to make hats, workers melted together rabbit or beaver skins and smoothed them with an orange solution,
Which
which
was
was
the
the
mercury.
mercuric nitrate.
That word.
Hatters then shaped it because of boiling. We already went through this. I just want to
Yeah.
like remind you because we talked a lot in between. So in 1851, the workers formed the Hatters Union, like we discussed. According to the report, unknown to the workers, mercury was already known for the reign of death. Hatters in the 19th century faced more lethal health problems than mercury poisoning, such as tuberculosis.
What?
Yeah, they also used that
Why are they
to
getting
treat
TB
it.
now?
They also, because of the war, a lot of people got tuberculosis.
Oh my god, these poor
Yeah.
Hatters.
So I know, but tuberculosis during this time was actually the leading cause of death.
Consumption.
Yeah. So in the close steamy, just think about that, steamy hat workrooms, hatters easily caught the disease of TB.
Mhm.
So this is another confusion. People thought that maybe they just had tuberculosis and were
My
acting weird,
god.
and then
They already
yeah,
were sick before. This is just making things worse.
right. So the Hatters Union fought for safer working conditions, but employers dismissed their complaints. They said Mad Hatter symptoms, tremors, hallucinations, being shy, which is so weird to me,
That's a weird
came
one.
from,
Shy.
I know, it's like,
You're so shy. Are you mercury poisoned?
are you drunk? Like I've never once been to somebody, you're so shy, are you drunk? So
Do you have
because of
mercury
that,
poisoning?
they thought it resulted from drunkenness and tobacco use.
to God. And they
I
already knew that
know.
it wasn't though.
Like, have you ever once seen a person drunk and been like, you're more shy than what you were when you were sober? I never have.
No,
So after the turn of the century, court decisions that favored anti-union employers weakened the Hatters Union. So
of
basically, it
course.
just means,
Of
yeah, it
course.
just weakened it. They didn't want to fight for it.
Boo.
In 1901, the United Hatters of North America, which, like, that's a sentence,
You know.
went on strike against the Danbury hat making factories of D.E. Lowe and Co. That's the brand. Dietrich Lowe bought the unions successfully, but boycotted his hats. if that makes sense. So he like bought the union and everyone that had boycotted him so they couldn't boycott him.
What?
Yeah, it damaged him financially.
Good.
Lowe sued the American Federation of Labor, the officers of the local Hatters Union, and 250 rank and file members of the Hatter Union who lived in Danbury and Norwalk. So he basically sued everyone.
He lost, right?
The case twice went all the way to the Supreme Court, which
Twice.
held the union, unlawfully restrained trade. Lowe was awarded about $250,000.
In the early 1900s?
And the individual defendants, so all the people in the union, had to pay his judgment. So the company,
God. What year was that again?
This was in 1901, or like a little after, because it went to the Supreme Court twice.
And that takes time, yeah. I'm going to get a rough estimate. That is $9,405,852 today.
Right.
Holy
So the
cannoli.
AFL held a Hatters Day in which union members throughout the United States donated an hour pay to the Hatters. The judgment was paid and the workers kept their houses because originally, because of this, the individuals had to pay his judgment. They were facing losing their homes, the people that were in the union.
I'm sure there wasn't a whole lot of them at this specific location.
Yeah, and the company just took their paychecks to pay for it.
I'm so glad that the community came together to help them out.
Yeah, and so they got to keep their homes and help pay. So now let's go into Alice Hamilton.
Who dat?
Yeah, she's awesome. During the 15 years the Danbury Hatters case moved through the courts, a socially prominent doctor who lived in, so I've done this twice, it's Hadlam, Connecticut, or Hadlem.
Probably Hadlam.
I can't remember. I think it's Hadlam. It's just the way it's spelled as Hadl.
Oh.
Yeah, and my brain, but I'm pretty sure when I looked it up, it said Hadlam, took up the cause of workers who got sick on the job. So she wasn't just diving into this as a union thing. She was being okay, what makes you sick?
Yeah.
Alice Hamilton, with her sister Edith Hamilton, had attended Miss Potter's school in Farmington, Connecticut, about 50 miles from Danbury. She earned a medical degree and joined Jane Addams Settlement House, Whole House in Chicago. Also, by the way, if you don't know what Miss Potter School is, you guys should look up Miss Potter.
Why?
So she actually wrote some of the original illustrations of animals and all of that. She wrote a bunch of books. You can watch it. There's a movie called Miss Potter or something. It's with Renee Zellweger, and she tells the story of Miss Potter. But either way, she had learned a medical degree, and then she joined Jane Addams Settlement House, and then living with poor workers, so she chose to live with them. She got interested in injuries and illnesses they suffered on the job. Alice Hamilton pioneered the fields of industry hygiene and occupation epidemiology.
Epidemiology?
Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you for that, because I had practiced that word 1,000 times before I even did this.
Epidemiology.
I wasn't that far off, okay?
No, it was good. It was good. It was good.
I feel like you sound like Louise comforting Tina on Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
It's good.
Tina's
It's good.
Okay. Okay. So in 1919, Harvard Medical School appointed her an assistant professor in the new Department of Industrial Medicine. She was its first woman faculty member. Hamilton investigated mercury poisoning and in 1922 produced a report.
Oh.
This is also just for the record. They knew mercury poisoning was bad well before the 1900s.
They
So,
already knew, and they still had people working in those conditions.
yeah. 3 years later, the Workers' Health Bureau of America and the United Hatters of America promoted Hamilton's findings. The report also concluded the symptoms did not result from alcohol and tobacco use as employers had claimed. Shocker.
Surprise.
You're more shy. I think you're drunk. I just spelled. Anyways, finally on December 1st, 1941, Connecticut banned the use of mercury in hat making. Hat makers instead use, this is it, hydrolonic acid.
Hydro?
Yeah, no, it's not hydra, it's hydrolonic acid.
Hydrolonic acid. That sounds better.
Yeah. It's a safe alternative. For years thereafter, they celebrated the December 1st anniversary, but it was almost too late. The hat industry had declined, and by 1923, only 6 hat factories had remained in Danbury.
Oh my gosh.
When they had been producing like
5 million a year.
Yeah. The city's last hat factory, Stetson, closed its doors in 1965.
Stetson.
Though the hat, I know, Stetson is familiar, right?
That's the cowboy hats. No, they call them a Stetson.
Well, that makes sense.
Right?
Because Jack knew it. Jack knew it too.
Yeah, they call them Stetsons. Yeah.
That does, I think you're right. So they closed their doors in 1965.
Okay, because I think of its congeniality when he's like, it's the guy under the white Stetson. And she's like, everybody's wearing white Stetsons.
Oh my God.
It's Texas.
That is hilarious. That is totally how I know the name Stetson. You're one in a million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I learned so much through, watching the movies. It's great.
I learned so much through Sandra Bullock. Okay, though the hat industry vanished from Danbury, the mercury still hasn't.
What?
Yeah. The Environmental Protection Agency declared the land on which the hat factory stood as a Superfund cleanup site.
What?
The sediment, the sediment of this
site.
Yeah, it's like a category. It just means like put all resources into this to clean it up.
I can't believe they use that terminology.
Yeah. I actually found that a lot through this whole story. The sediment of the Still and Houstonic rivers contained traces of mercury to this day.
Wow.
In 2003,
So it just it was because it spilled on the floors and stuff, or they dumped vats of it out? Like what?
A combination of both. The way they were caring for this mercury is crazy. And I'm actually a little surprised you didn't ask, because when I did this episode with Jack, he was asking me about the people that wore the hats. So if it was so bad for them,
I was thinking it would have come off in the boiling water because they were boiling the water and then they were sizing it, didn't it? And mercury's
you're correct.
Okay, and then mercury shelf life, I think, is that our half-life is really short too.
So I actually looked it up.
Anyway, mercury is a long one, but I was just thinking of
it lasts forever. That's why it's in
the ground still.
The ground. I think there has to be a perfect component, and I'm kind of wondering if water has to do with this, because the sediment of the rivers contain traces of mercury. And then it really affected the workers when it was being boiled. So,
Like in the steam and stuff.
yeah, in water. So I think there must be a component that makes it worse in water. But I looked it up after Jack had asked me about people wearing the hats. I did not find that anybody stated anything about people wearing the hats.
Yeah, and getting sick off of wearing it.
Yeah, so it's not people just walking around with the hats that got sick. Although, keep in mind, those people were always sick. So I don't know if anybody ever correlated they were maybe getting mercury poisoning the whole time. That one is TBD. Nobody looked into it, I guess. I don't know.
But I feel like there would have been a lot more sick people than, like a lot more, if they were getting poisoned from their hats.
The problem is it would have been a very slow poisoning. So like
that is true.
I'm not sure anybody would have noticed. People in that day died in their 50s anyways. So I just don't know we're 40s or 50s. You know, people lived until 80s sometimes, but maybe they just didn't wear hats. I don't know. It's just nobody had correlated any symptoms of people wearing hats to them. Yeah. That I found.
I was just thinking about the workers because that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. That's what I thought of. And Jack was like, what about the people in the hats?
What people?
I was like, nobody wore these hats. What do you mean?
They just bought them.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, I did look it up. And for anybody wondering, like Jack, TBD, unfortunately, unanswered.
Curious.
So in 2003, the state of Connecticut planted on a hat factory site, they're called eastern cottonwood trees, that are genetically engineered to absorb mercury.
Fancy.
Yeah.
No. Oh no.
What do trees put into the world?
Oxygen?
The trees emit mercury into the air.
So, no, they really?
It absorbs mercury and then re-puts it out.
Is that a thing?
I didn't know this until this.
That's a thing? I would think that after it was absorbed into the tree, it absorbed it and whatever, and then like purified it, and then it wasn't there anymore. Like a big air filter, sucking it up from the ground. What
I found is that they are finding mercury in the air.
Perfect. I love that. That's
so
on par for
it's not
2025.
Like killing people. This was in 2003.
I know, that's so long ago.
It's not like killing people. It's just if you're in Connecticut and you suddenly start feeling really shy, maybe it's not your fault. Okay, but like actually.
I'm really sorry. I got too close to a conifer tree over by the old Danbury factory.
Oh my god. I can't talk to you anymore. This cotton tree over here is just taking it all away from me.
Anyway, bringing it back to being serious.
Bringing it back, that's pretty much where we are today.
That's interesting. And that was so they planted the trees in 2003, right? Mm-hmm. Under the assumption that it would be a big filter and they
absorb it.
Okay. And when did they figure out that it's not actually doing that?
They figured that out very soon after.
Do we have like 2010?
Let's say 2005. Because it was still like in the 2000 era.
Okay. So I guess they tried.
Yeah. And then that's where literally this falls off the face of the earth.
They just like, well, we did what we could.
The trees are still emitting mercury into the air. These hatters fucked Connecticut. That's...
Wait, okay, so what if they got all the mercury out of the ground and then it's in the air now and they just chop all the trees down? Can they use that land? Is this like a cordoned off forest?
Yeah.
You can just walk up to a tree and be like, hey, mercury.
Yeah, it's weird. The eastern cottonwood trees. But this is just where the story kind of like
Fizzles out.
dissipates.
So the EPA like washed their hands of it as far as we know?
Yeah. It doesn't mean they're not doing anything. It doesn't mean that they haven't like already chopped down most of these trees. It just means when you're doing research on this,
You can't really find anything new.
the last thing that they connect to it is, hey, we planted these trees that don't work. Yeah.
Fun. That's great.
I know. Actually, because Jack thought I left it on a cliffhanger. So I actually like went back to look it up and I was like, did I miss something?
And you're like, nope. That's the end.
I didn't. Yeah, that's like the last thing I can find is that they planted these trees. Someone did it. Someone did.
Wow.
I think that's why I'm frustrated with this episode. This is not my favorite episode in case you guys don't know.
There's no closure. It's still open.
And I honestly think
for an update.
Yeah, I honestly think somebody should do like a study analysis on the state of Connecticut in the areas that this happened and just like see.
They might
See
be.
if there's any connectors.
They're
Does anyone have syphilis and not know it? Does anyone have TB and are questioning?
Is all of Connecticut shy?
Is anyone so shy? Like, do you maybe have shakes that they're telling you are normal tremors from your drinking habits? Go to the doctor.
Weird.
Do you have a cottonwood tree on your property?
Well,
chop it down.
Maybe the EPA is doing like a long study of it and it'll come out in 2050.
That's what I'm actually wondering. I'm saying all this stuff to be funny, but actually I kind of wonder if they've dealt with it in some other aspect and then just didn't put it out there and they were just like, oh, these cottonwood trees were planted. Because I can't imagine that there's like all these environmentalists that are just letting this be.
Maybe they don't know because the EPA actually didn't post anything about it.
If I could find it, they could find it.
I don't know. Well, I have nothing to add to that because I'm very just shook that they just have trees.
On a different note, I actually wanted to put this in the episode because when I was doing my research again today, after I've already done this episode, I found out that they actually think the Mad Hatter was inspired by a different man, not an actual Hatter.
What?
But yeah, because his symptoms.
Well, he had like mania and stuff.
Yeah, his symptoms aren't quite the Mad Hatter symptoms. It's not. He definitely wasn't shy.
No.
He wasn't. Like maybe hallucinations. But he wasn't getting like tremors.
No.
Although the Johnny Depp version, I actually remember him trying to make a hat.
The Johnny Depp version.
I think he did shake.
I think the Johnny Depp version is probably pretty accurate as far as like some of the symptoms from Hatter syndrome.
It's a lot closer.
Yeah.
But the original.
From Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah, no.
Like the old school?
Yeah, so they actually think he was. You can look him up because I meant to put it in here and I forgot. It's like a different man who was just like an eccentric
and inspired
dude
the Mad Hatter.
Yeah, that they think took. Yeah, but they called him a Mad Hatter to like coincide with these symptoms, although the person who possibly inspired him wasn't a Hatter.
Interesting. Well, thank you for that. I had fun on that episode.
I'm so glad.
That took me for a trip.
It wasn't my favorite episode, and I hate saying that because I did so much research on it. It just, they can't all be my favorite. So remember in the beginning episodes when you were like, you're going to say this one's so much fun. I told you one day I wouldn't. So
that was the one, but it was fun. I liked it. Thank you so much.
I'm glad. You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to today's episode of That's Peculiar. We promise to do better next time.
We're
not
trying.
Not the episode, but with as far as getting episodes out, like we have said we're going to.
We have only skipped one.
I know.
Okay?
I still feel kind of guilty.
I felt guilty all week.
I know.
So anyone who actually cares, we felt guilty.
Yeah.
our schedules didn't combine, and then Jack and I tried to do an episode,
It
and
didn't
you
work.
couldn't hear the whole entire episode.
Yeah.
So
We're sorry.
technical difficulties.
Tune in.
Blame the computers.
Tune in next week for a new episode of That's Peculiar. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on That's Peculiar. Please like, follow, and share. Tune in next week for another new episode of That's Peculiar.